I'd like to, my great pleasure to have Brad Maihack come up. Thank you, Brad.
All right, can everyone hear me? And can we turn the volume down just a little bit, please? Okay, great. Well, let me find my place today. So sorry for the little hiccups. Listen, today we've called this a forum for a very particular reason. You know, a forum really is a public place for discussion and dialogue. That's what today's about. Conversation starts now, and it's about innovation. It's about leadership and how to use innovation as a tool to help transform and create change in your organizations for surviving and thriving in these really tough economic times. If we look at it, it's not a replacement for the tools in your toolbox. These are additional tools, something to complement what you already have, to enhance your leadership skills in your organizations, and to help meet the challenges and needs of our local communities. As Joyce said, it's all about mindset. What is innovation? How do we define it? How do I get our arms around that? It's around process and framework and best practices, represented by 150 people in this room. Best practices that are done every day, used effectively every day, and we'll hear throughout the day a lot about those best practices and insights into approaches how you might bring innovation to bear on your particular area. In fact, the community network that we'll build today really is the starting point for a lot of change in the Bay Area. In fact, Matt, could you give me that paper? I don't know if you keep up in the paper, but every day I kind of turn to the local section, and today I'm sure the deans know this, article in the local section, cuts to limit university admissions. Again, here we go, right? Every single day, a burning platform is developing, federal funding, local funding, causing change to be initiated and have to be initiated to create the change and the successes that we really all want to achieve, especially in meeting the needs and challenges of this particular area. Silicon Valley, most expensive house in the nation, about 8 miles away from here, $100 million, and one of the highest levels of poverty in the nation. Unacceptable outcomes for an area like the Bay Area. So innovation, what is it? How many of you, top of your mind, within 3 sentences, can define innovation? Show of hands? That's the problem. Typically, I would say there's a lot of hands that go up, but here's the deal. I went to the actual raw source of truth. Amazon.com, Google, you know, those kinds of things. So the topic of innovation is very, very active. Over 46,000 videos on it, or books, sorry. Over almost 16 million videos, and over $400 million references to innovation. So again, think about this community that's here today. A lot of talk, yet no one in this room could raise their hand. That's a problem. It's a problem for me, it's a problem for you. Because innovation has to be at the center of the transformational leadership change that we all use and we all take to bear on our businesses as we go forward. So here's my definition of innovation. Hopefully you can all walk away today. Innovation, actionable and executable ideas that can be turned into value. An idea that can't be executed or actioned into value, increase the impact of your services, reduce the cost of delivering your services, have a better ecosystem that's more valuable to all. An idea that can't result in value is a great idea. How many of you have great ideas every day? Okay. Probably 10 an hour, 15 an hour. Making them actionable, executable, and result in value. Okay? So now, when you leave here, the number one thing you'll be able to at least claim you can do, someone says, can you describe innovation? Say, sure. Ideas that are actionable, executable, into value. Okay? So, how many of you could define innovation? All right, still half of you are going to remedial innovation training. All right, here we go. Okay, but why is this important? You know, really, innovation. just another thing, right? I'm already busy. I work on policy. I work on local collaboration. We're driving change each and every day of our lives. But why is innovation important? These are some of the statistics. Everyone knows about the economic crisis going on, pressure everywhere, just on our daily employment, whether you're in commercial or nonprofit. We've also got a dramatic change in public funding. Kip will talk later. You can see the city. You look at San Francisco. You look at any of the cities across the nation, tremendous pressure on local funding for programs. Hyper competition. How many of you in the nonprofit every day are worried about grants and where the next grant is, et cetera, et cetera? And a change in focus. If you really think about that funding, years ago it used to be from the heart, charity, do good for no particular return. Now we have outcome-oriented grants, outcome-oriented giving. I give to create impact, right? Especially in Silicon Valley. Being funded by a lot of people that have been very, very successful, starting in places like Skoll, the Packard Foundation, et cetera, are very outcome-oriented. We'll give you funding, show me how you create value. And lastly, there's a gap, just in skills. We all have a gap. We talk about innovation, we talk about creativity, we talk about approaches to do things different, but we really have a gap in the practical skills. How do we really do that? I was at an art class in San Francisco over the weekend, talk about art, a little bit of art history, and always talking about how I love to draw. And the guy handed me a pencil, shoved it into my hand. He said, the way you get good, start doing it. And I kind of, I cried, little tears welled up in my eyes. But that's true here. To be innovative, to come up with ideas, actionable, executable, into value, you got to start. And today is where you start. Okay, so this is an old metaphor of the burning platform. How many of you heard about this metaphor? It basically says you're an oil worker, you're on a platform, it catches fire, the drop from the platform to the C4 will kill you 90 times out of 100, but you have a choice. You will die 100% of the time if you stay on the platform because you'll be burned, so you have a choice. The burning platform creates a choice to take some risky action that has a probability of success, but it forces you to take that action. On the left-hand side, you can see this was an infographic that showed up in the Mercury about 3 or 4 months ago in the first round of California budget discussions, highlighting all of the different impacts, economic development boards, the state funding for education, et cetera. And it was pretty shocking when this first came out, a lot of debate. Now, the only question I have is it getting better? I'll look at Kip or anybody else. How many think this situation is getting better? Nobody, and in fact, it's getting worse. As we saw here, every day I pick up the paper, there's another challenge to the traditional funding of our state institutions, our nonprofit institutions. So, the key is, okay, now we know what innovation is. We know why it's important. We have this burning platform that we're all experiencing every day. So what about the process? What's the framework? How do we think about going about this activity called innovation? And for that, what I'd like to do is welcome Adam Reineck and Matt Taylor to the stage, who are from IDEO.org. IDEO.org is a spinoff from IDEO, a great world-class design firm that we'll hear more about, to really take empathic, human-centered design and innovation into the nonprofit world, to help people understand how to use the power of innovation more effectively to meet these challenges created by this burning platform. So Matt?
Great.
Adam?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brad. Okay. Cool. So yeah, we really believe strongly in the power of bringing local communities together. I think this is a great chance for everybody to connect here today. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of where we come from and what we do, and then share some of our kind of tips, techniques, best practices, what we think really counts and helps people come up with new ideas. So some of you may have heard of IDEO. It's a 30-year-old design and innovation consultancy based out of Palo Alto. We're we're known for product development in the past. We started off doing the first mouse for Apple, first laptop. Lots of products since evolved into strategy, service, experience design. We work in every industry now, all over the world. But I think why we're here today is because last year we started a nonprofit spin-off of our company. And our goal is really to apply the design process and what we've learned to some of the really hard challenges in the world and help other like-minded organizations, nonprofits, people with social missions to help achieve their goals and dreams. So Matt's going to talk a bit about that. He's part of the core team at IDEO.org.
Great. Thanks, Adam. So as Adam was explaining, IDEO started out designing hard products, and over the course of time started applying that design methodology to a range of challenges. And somewhere along the line, foundations, some of the large foundations, really started to push IDEO to think about the application of design thinking in the social sector. And so we did some early work with foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. One of our early projects was to think about tailoring human-centered design to the challenges that social sector organizations are tackling. And the output of that work was the Human-Centered Design Toolkit, which actually walks you through sort of IDEO.org's approach to human-centered design in the social sector. That toolkit's available for download on our website. But we were just working with a couple of the large foundations, and we really saw just the range of organizations in the social sector that were really hungry to add design thinking to their toolkit, yet our services were just so inaccessible because we were housed within a professional services firm. And so we turned the design process on ourselves and began to explore alternative ways for us to scale up our social impact work. And this landed on creating a separate nonprofit organization that would sit aside IDEO. And the reason here was it allowed us to streamline our operating model, so really reduce our costs and make our services more accessible to organizations. But at the end of the day, it wasn't just about doing more projects, doing more design consulting work, and reducing our costs. It was about creating a mission-driven organization that could sit next to IDEO and really think about how to spread human-centered design throughout the social sector. So we designed IDEO.org to have an impact in 3 ways: design, foster, and spread. So design, this is our traditional design consulting work. So as Adam shared, IDEO is a design and innovation consulting firm that does consulting on a range of different innovation challenges. IDEO.org does design consulting work with nonprofit organizations, foundations, and social enterprises tackling challenges related to poverty. And we do work domestically, we do it internationally. We've done it on a range of different issues, from water and sanitation to financial inclusion. This year alone, we launched in September 2011. We've done a project where we designed an endoscope for fistula surgery in developing countries, all the way to creating an early childhood learning campaign for low-income communities in the United States. The second pillar of our impact is to foster the development of leaders who learn the principles and practices of human-centered design and its application to the social sector at IDEO.org, and they go off and do great things in the world after a year. So right now we recruit 3 senior project leaders from IDEO. Adam is one of those people who come to IDEO.org for a year and lead our consulting teams. And then we pair them with, right now, 5 people who were recruited from outside of the IDEO community, who bring a sort of a background at the intersection of design and the social sector. So we have the best thinkers in design paired with people who really understand the social sector, and they're out doing our consulting work. This is our fellow class this year. You have somebody all the way on the left there who designed a hospital in Rwanda during her time as a graduate student, all the way to the person on the right who is a former business designer, consultant at McKinsey, who did some work with Ashoka in Brazil. And the last pillar of impact of IDEO.org is really to spread the principles and practices of human-centered design throughout the social sector. And I think this is really important because it acknowledges the fact that no matter how big we get, no matter how many consulting projects we do, or how many leaders we develop, we're never going to get big enough to spread human-centered design to all the organizations and all of the communities that could benefit from it. So we spread human-centered design in a couple different ways. One way is that we have an open project sharing policy. So basically, anytime an organization does work with us, so we partner with them to do consulting work, we share all of our work on our website. So you can go on every week and see what our project teams are doing, and at the end of our projects, you can download the actual deliverables that we give to our clients. The second way is that we're actually creating a community around human-centered design. So I showed you that toolkit in an earlier slide, where now this sort of next evolution of that is to create an online platform where people using human-centered design can connect to one another, share stories, ask questions, get resources, and support one another in applying it to the design challenge related to poverty. And finally, IDEO has an open innovation platform called Open IDEO. It's really like a crowdsourcing platform, so anyone can become a member of Open IDEO and then participate in the design challenge. Most of them are related to some sort of intractable social problem. So you could become a member and actually participate in the design process with other people. And now I'm going to turn it back to Adam to talk a little bit more about some of the tools within design thinking that you all might be able to apply on your day-to-day.
Yeah, so as Brad mentioned, today's all about taking action. So we kind of reached into what we do every day and tried to summarize some of our favorite ways of working, or things that we feel are easy to access, easy to implement, and a great way to start kind of doing more innovative thinking. So a lot of people call what we do design thinking. It's essentially taking the design process that's traditionally been used for, buildings, objects, visuals. It's a pretty rigorous process, a lot of iteration, and we've applied it to much broader challenges. That's basically how we work at the simplest level. And these, we're going to share, I think, 9 different tips and techniques that we think are really valuable. And I think, again, as Brad mentioned, these aren't. This isn't an all or nothing approach. This is something that you can add to what you do today. You could walk away with 2 of these just to try tomorrow. They're simple things that we think everyone could benefit in their work, whether you're an old institution that has long history to a startup, trying to figure out where you're going in the world. So the first one is get out there. This is one that's always hard to remember, but putting yourself in the shoes of your customers is incredibly valuable. It's inspiring. Finding ways to go, see where they work, be in their home, talk to people one-on-one. If you've been in business for 5 years, it's a great way to stay fresh and stay on top of your game. So number 2, this is all about research. Understand and observe. We do qualitative research, which is going into people's homes or places of work, talking to them. Sometimes we spend an hour and a half with people. You get to things that you can't find in a survey. Sometimes people will tell us something when we first meet them, and then at the end of the interview, you'll find something completely contradictory in their garage, or hidden behind a shelf. So we're doing this project on low-income financial services in Mexico right now, and we first started trying to find people, in this certain segment. Most people told us they didn't save money, thinking they didn't save money in a bank. But once, after we talked to people and got them comfortable, everyone had some informal way. Some people had multiple informal ways of saving. They send money to their mom every month to keep it safe. One woman we met basically buys bricks whenever she has money and builds her house slowly over time. That's all saving. So these, you may not be able to see this, I'm not sure. These are some types of qualitative research that we think are really valuable. One-on-one interviews, kind of classic research approach, but making sure you spend enough time to get people comfortable, be on their level. Group interviews is really valuable when you get people that are all sharing a similar experience. Maybe they're all friends. So I did a project a couple years ago on helping diabetics remember to take insulin. So we found this group of middle-aged women. They were all friends. They never really talked about their condition, but we got them all together in a comfortable environment, and they were all sharing the ways they remember, their kind of their own tips and techniques. Really valuable. In context interviews, is that what it says there? I can't see the screen.
Immersion.
Context immersion. This is getting yourself basically understanding exactly how your customers live. So we did this project with returning veterans who were wounded, and our design team spent the night with a number of families trying to understand, what kind of issues you have, like moving around the house, what kinds of things you want to do day to day from your beginning of your day to the end. Really valuable to do that as well. You might have to help me with the second to last one. Expert interviews. This is a great way to kind of stay fresh and stay cutting edge. So we often find, on our projects, we're talking to customers and potential people that would use the service. But let's say we're doing a project on the future of education. We may talk to futurists. We might talk to biologists to see, where different technologies are going. Like really stretch yourself there. My favorite one is the last one, which is analogous experiences. I think especially in the social sector, but I think every industry suffers from this, is you tend to benchmark yourself on other companies that are doing the same work that you are. I think what we've found to be really valuable is to look across industries. Think of your challenge in generic terms. What kind of challenge are you facing? And then look for other companies that may have similar challenges. So a great example of this is we went and talked to a NASCAR pit crew during a race because we were designing the flow of an operating room in a hospital. So they're both teams that work really quickly, or really efficiently, really closely together, high pressure environments. So number 3 is again on research, but talking to extremes. So this little mountain in the middle represents maybe your core market, or your segment of beneficiaries, depending on how you work. People on the left represent kind of the more underserved of the population. People on the right, maybe the more kind of engaged early adopters. So say you're designing a cell phone, just as a generic example. People on one extreme, maybe they're phobic of technology, they don't have a phone, but it could be really valuable to talk to them, maybe to understand how they keep notes, how they organize their contacts, how they remember information. These are all, analog experiences often inspire digital experiences. On the other end, you have the early adopters, the people that are hacking their phones to, create new services and new programs. We find them to be really receptive to early prototypes, rough ideas. They're excited to see new things. They want to be the first. So we can test cardboard mock-ups with them, and they'll believe it and get engaged in a story. This is also another fun one. Work with other disciplines. If your organization is 10 engineers and 1 MBA, maybe think about shaking it up a little bit. It's amazing the kinds of things you can learn from people that think differently from yourself. Our teams are typically 3 to 6 people, but we have psychologists, anthropologists, engineers, designers, MBAs, biologists. We have this intern wildcard opening on our website right now, which is could be anything. We just want someone bright and exciting to work with. So we've found this to be really valuable in coming up with new ideas and making yourself uncomfortable as well. A lot of people disagree with each other, but it's a great way to get to an answer. And then consider the system. This is number 5, yeah. We believe that good ideas and great solutions sit at the intersection of what's desirable, viable, and feasible. Thinking about people, business, and technology. But all too often people start with technology. They have a technology, they don't have a solution for it. Or start with a business plan without thinking about your customers. So we definitely want to stress, if you start with people, you'll understand where the desirability is, what matters to people, what's meaningful. and you can always build a business plan and find the right technology to go with that. And again, echoing what Brad said today, make it actionable. Everything you do should have a plan for action to it. Doesn't have to be hard, it can be really easy. These are some ways that we believe are easy to take action. You might have to help me with these again. This is the first one? Synthesize, right, okay. So I think we see a lot of research plans in the social sector, a lot of research reports and books. It's harder to find ways to make that research really actionable and results, oriented. So we've found that spending dedicated time looking at the research and identifying opportunities, summarizing, connecting the dots. We have this process that takes us from, rough research to really clear insights. What are things we heard repeated? What are things that stood out? Turning those into opportunities is a great way to come up with ideas and make it actionable. Talk through your ideas. I think if you're sitting at your desk alone for more than 10 minutes thinking about something, you probably could have already solved your solution by just talking to a friend about it. This is something that we always forget, but just talking through an idea is a way that just like teaching. If there's a lot of I think education people here, it's a way that clarifies the ideas for yourself as well. Help me with the next one. Be visual, yeah. So exactly like on the left here. There's something really powerful about visualizing ideas, thoughts. It's a way that everyone can agree on something in the room, and often a drawing can explain what a whole report could probably explain at the same time. You don't have to be an artist. If you're scared of drawing, play Pictionary a few times, or there's a great iPhone app called Draw Free where you can kind of share drawings with friends. Really important, finding ways to get your ideas out there quicker, faster, better. Let's see, storytelling. So storytelling and storyboarding, how many of you have ever done the exercise where you try to track what you did from waking up to going to sleep, writing, like journaling? I think it's a pretty common exercise. I think what's cool about that is you realize things that you might otherwise forget if you just told someone a story about it or explained it. So we found that storyboarding, if you have a good idea, you try to map out what the steps are, what's the experience, how do people get introduced to it, how does it work. We always find missing things that either make or break the idea through that. It's a way of being thorough. And brainstorm. So another fun one. Brainstorming, I think everyone's probably familiar with it. It's a great way to break down constraints, provided that you're not judging your own ideas before you say them, or that other people aren't judging yours. We have a lot of brainstorms. It's a really fun thing for teams to do. We have a whole set of brainstorm rules you can find in the Human-Centered Design Toolkit. But one thing that I love to do is, maybe you invite 8 people. I always invite someone crazy who's going to say the most offensive, strange thing you could think of. And I always invite someone who's, really experienced in one area. You always come up with great ideas that way. This is personal favorite, prototyping early and often. Again, making it actionable, but turning your ideas, it doesn't have to be a product, it could be a service, you could act it out. Experiences, stories. We really believe strongly in prototyping. It's just a way of getting feedback really quickly from people. And then expand, focus, and repeat. This is basically our design process in a strange digestive tract diagram. But what we found it really helpful to do is to move from concrete to abstract, but back to concrete again. I think we're comfortable living in this chaos in the middle, but we know that by working a certain way we can get to real answers. So we'll always move from research to insights, finding opportunities, lots of ideas, crazy ideas, safe ideas. And then as a way of prototyping, building them, testing them, we can actually get to what we think is the right solution. So this is the way we work. What's interesting is that you can do this many times on a project or in the life of a company. If you're a startup, you may want to just keep doing this cycle again and again. You might do it a couple times. We found it specifically in really fast-moving areas, like in our Shanghai office, we have to do this multiple times on a project because the market changes so quickly that the market is shifted by the time we move from research to the product launching. So we have to move quicker, faster, dirtier, more efficiently as the world changes and speeds up. Cool. So we've got, we're really young, but we have a few thoughts and learnings that we've learned in the last year working in social innovation.
Yeah, so we launched in September. Part of the sort of tools and tricks that I think are embedded in a lot of what Adam talked about is just failing faster. So putting things out there sooner to get feedback from folks and learn what's right and what's wrong. And I think this part of our presentation is embracing fail faster, because these are reflections that are based on 10 projects that we've done over the course of 5 months. So it'll be interesting to see if anything resonates with folks. So the first one, and I also have really bad vision, but I think this one was about reframing questions to get to new answers. So I do business development at IDEO.org, so I talk to a lot of really interesting organizations. And I'd say a lot of them fall into 2 buckets. One is organizations who are stuck. They're asking the same question. They've tried a bunch of different ways to answer that question, and they can't figure it out. So they're coming at us to get help in trying to figure out the answer to that question. And the other group is organizations that have reframed the question that they're asking, or asking a new question, and have unlocked really incredible opportunities for innovation, and now need help exploring and navigating that opportunity. One interesting example was just a call I was on last week, where I was talking to an organization that does a lot of work around malaria in Africa. And they were explaining this challenge in that a lot of people are misdiagnosed with malaria and then treated as if they have malaria, so misusing drugs, but then also not being treated for whatever disease or ailment they do have. And for the longest time, this organization was thinking about, how might we better scale up nurses to more consistently and correctly interpret results of tests, so they know whether or not people actually have malaria. Because one of the biggest challenges is just the interpretation of these tests. And this organization explained their journey to actually shifting the question that they were asking. Now saying, well, what if we redesign the actual malaria tests, make it far more intuitive, higher degree of usability or user interface, so that more nurses correctly interpret results, right? And I think this is a much more sustainable way to think about the challenge, but you can see how just slightly changing the question you're asking opens up just incredible opportunities for new ways of thinking about solutions to the same core problem. And so, Adam and I wanted to just put some reflections out there for you all to think about today. And I think this first one is just, what questions are at the core of your work that you might be able to ask a little bit differently that might unlock, a new space for innovation. This second reflection is one that I particularly like. And so, I've been in my fair share of small nonprofit organizations. And, we start to bump our head up against the wall. We face a challenge. And we say, let's look out at the 15 other organizations in education who face the same problem. And inevitably, one is doing it a little bit better. And we call that a best practices. And we adopt it internally, right? Yeah. And IDEO, when I came to IDEO 6 months ago, it really sort of broke down that frame for me and said, no, break your, much like Adam talked about, break down your challenge in more generic terms and start looking all over the world for analogous situations you can draw inspiration from. This is a story that I really like from one of our projects this fall. So we worked with the Rockefeller Foundation to help them identify opportunities for investment in youth employment globally. And we had a team that traveled to Tanzania and India. And they had, two insights in the field. One was that a lot of employers who had jobs said, well, these kids are coming to us from formal schools, but they don't have the foundational skills that are going to make them successful in the jobs that I have. And then we saw a lot of, informal opportunities happening out in the field where youth were gaining really valuable skills, but they had no way of sort of universally signaling what they were learning to employers. And so the team said, there's a really big opportunity around designing a system to provide informal credentialing relative to these opportunities where they're learning these foundational skills. And they said, geez, where can we get some insight into informal credentialing? And somebody said, what about the black belt system? They're like, if somebody walks up to you and says, I have a black belt, you're not going to ask them, like, where did you train? Or, like, who was your teacher? You're going to step 5 feet away from them and hope they don't kick your butt, right? And so the team really learned a lot by just studying a black belt, which, tying it to education is really unique, and there's a lot to learn from that analogous inspiration. So again, where might you start to draw new inspiration for the work that you all are doing?
So the next one that we've found it in many situations, but risk aversion is really paralyzing in this space. One example we were going to talk about is we did this sanitation service in Ghana a year ago. And we found the global sanitation community to be, heavily networked. It's an amazing community, but there's a lot of really strong opinions about what's the right or wrong solution to the global sanitation crisis. We read so many reports and heard so many conflicting arguments. There was a lot of negativity, but we didn't see a lot of really great solutions out in the market either. So one thing we just tried to do, going back to prototyping, we came up with 5 different prototypes of toilets that we thought, could be possible answers. We brought them to Ghana. We tested them with families. And this service, the way it developed, is it's a toilet that goes into your house. It gets picked up regularly and brought back. So we were actually bringing these into people's homes for 3 days at a time. We'd pick up the toilet, clean it, interview the family about their experience, and then move on. All the prototypes failed in some way. The one on the left there was made out of masonite and random parts we found at the plumbing store. It broke on the last day of our trip, but it lasted exactly as long as we wanted it to. But this is a great way just to test our assumptions, curious mind, open mind. So I think one thing we'd urge you all to try is finding a safe place for failure and experimentation, and maybe it's just a safe opportunity at one point in a project, or maybe there's a space in your office that you dedicate towards that. But incredibly valuable kind of allowance for yourself or your team.
Right, and another one that we reflected on is just the importance of really challenging some of your key assumptions about the work that you're doing. And I think a good example of this is some of the work we did this fall around designing an early childhood learning campaigns really targeted around kids from 0 to 3, specifically in low-income communities in the United States. And as Adam explained, part of our process is to really have our designers get steeped in research in the field. And this project team spent a lot of time talking to experts and digging through reports. And everything was saying, well, geez, reading is really the key here. Sure, there's a lot of other things that parents can do with their kids, but we need to get these parents to read. And some of the challenges are we just have to find new ways to get them books, like have the doctor give them books when they're bringing them in for their appointments, or let's make books that are just more relevant to who they are, so they want to engage with these stories. And so our team took that into the field, and they very well could have said, well, reading is the answer, and let's think about opportunities to get books to parents in new ways, or to create new stories that are more engaging, or to find messages that make parents want to read to their kids more often. But they went into the field and they purposefully challenged that assumption, and they ended up surfacing some really powerful insights that were negative associations that a lot of these parents had around reading. One thing that stuck to me was some parent who said, geez, every time somebody tells me to read to my kid, I disengage because it reinforces a sense of failure that I feel around not having graduated school. Or there was another parent that said, gosh, reading is really, really tough. I work 2 jobs. It's hard for me to read myself. I'm not that great at it. I come home, I'm really exhausted, and I want to start struggling through reading myself to read to my kid. That's not what I want to do. And so the team ended up designing a really powerful campaign that focused on all the small things that you can do with your kid other than read that have been shown to improve brain development in early years. So it's a really exciting campaign, and we're hoping that it launches later this year. So just, again, the importance of really challenging your assumptions, or at least being open to trying to challenge your assumptions, and where that might lead you to new opportunities. So another reflection is, what assumptions are at the core of your work that you might just test in a new way, or go out into the field and test with the people that you're serving.
Yeah, just something on these questions. I think we always like to ask these kind of open-ended questions to each other as we work. We always, write, how might we do this or this? It's always a positive question. We found it to be a really good way of generating, again, positive ideas. We use the words "how might we" so much that we just write HMW before we write the question now. A lot of people are really confused when they come into our project spaces, but. So this, I think, is this the last one or the second to last one? So workarounds are extreme and inspiring. I think workarounds that people do, going back to that extreme curve, the people on either end of the curve. But people in these segments, low-income people are underserved almost universally, and they have to figure out ways to get through their lives in ways that aren't formal that we're used to. So this example comes again from this project in Mexico we're doing right now. We're working with pretty low income segments. Most people are either unbanked or have debanked themselves because of high commissions and bank fees. We heard a story of someone who had $300 in their savings account, but because it was below the bank's minimum balance, they came back a couple months later and their whole account was gone because of the fees associated with it. It's a lot of negativity, not a lot of services, not a lot of offers. What we did find is again, the workarounds that they have and the informal systems they've created are incredible. They're called tandas. They're like group savings clubs, which are all over the world, but really amazing. Groups of friends share money, just as a way to keep their money secure and to force themselves to save. So we have automatic transfers in our accounts here. They have to bring their money to maybe their mom or the head of their building or their community once a week. They'll do it for 10 weeks. And then you have a number. So if you're number 1, you get paid the full sum. If you're paying $10 a week, you get $100 the first week. If you're number 10, you get $100 at the end of the 10 weeks. So these function as credit or savings, depending on what number you have. Really cool stuff. Lots of people saving under their mattress. I thought it was just something you talked about, but everyone has something under their mattress. Lots of really interesting kind of analog ways of organizing money and savings. Incredibly inspiring stuff. So we're now looking at ways to make this more reliable, safer, convenient for people. So what are tools you can use to uncover the current workarounds of your customers? This goes back to research, but I think also just looking deeper and in different places. There's a lot of very underserved communities in the Bay Area specifically, Hunters Point, East Palo Alto, West Oakland. I think there's a lot of things we can do to better serve them and create new offerings for people that really need it. So thank you. This is I think we have room for questions now, but that's what we have to say. these work?